Hi guys, this is Arvind from MindMajix, and today I welcome you all to this amazing session on Pandas interview questions. So guys, as you all must be knowing, so Python Pandas is a very popular Python library which is used for data analysis and data munging, you can say. So Pandas is a very popular among data scientists, data engineers, and data analysts all over the world. So that is why we decided to come up with the interview questions around this topic with Pandas interview questions. So basically in this session, what we have done is we have categorized the questions into three categories. So the first category of questions is the basic or the freshers. Then you have the advanced or the experienced candidates questions. And the last set of questions is the most frequently asked questions around Python Pandas. Okay, so this is the structure that we are going to follow for this video as well. So without any further delay, let's get started. So the first, foremost, and very basic question, define Python Pandas. So Pandas refers to a data analysis and manipulation software library built specifically for Python. So Wes McKinney designed Pandas, which was an open source and a cross-platform library. So it was first released in the year 2008, and it included data structures and procedures for manipulating numerical and time series data. So Pandas can be installed with the pip package manager or the Anaconda distribution. So Pandas makes doing machine learning algorithms on tabular data a very easy procedure. The next question is mention different types of data structures in Pandas. So series and data frames are the two types of data structures that the Panda library supports. So NumPy serves as the foundation for both of these data structures. So data frame is a two-dimensional or a 2D data structure in Pandas, while series is a one-dimensional data structure. So panel, a three-dimensional data structure that includes items, a major axis, a minor axis, and the last one is the label. The next question is, what is Python Pandas used for? So Pandas is a data manipulation and analysis software library for Python programming language. It includes data structures and methods for manipulating numerical tables and time series in particular. So Pandas is an open source software licensed under the BSD 3 clause license. So the next question is, list out the key features of Pandas library. So the Pandas library has a number of features such as it is memory efficient, it supports time series data, you can do reshaping or the data alignment and merging and joining of the data. So basically all kinds of data manipulation and data analysis can be done using the Pandas library. So the next question is give a brief description about time series in Pandas. So time series is an organized collection of data that depicts the evolution of a quantity through time. So pandas have a wide range of capabilities and tools for working with time series data in all fields. So if you talk about how does pandas handle time series data, so pandas analyzes time series data from a variety of sources and formats. So it creates time and date sequences with preset frequencies. Apart from this, date and time manipulation and conversion with time zone information is available in pandas. So a time series is resampled or converted to a specific frequency, and calculating dates and times using absolute or relative time increments is one way to handle this data in pandas. The next question is explain how to create and copy a series in pandas. So to copy the series in pandas, what you can do is we can use pandas.series.copy as you can see here. So using this pandas.series.copy, you make a significant copy of everything, including the data and the indices. And as you can see over here, you can also specify series.copy deep equal to true. So when deep equal to true is mentioned, so data is transferred, only the connection to the object is emulated recursively and not the actual Python objects. Whereas when you set the deep to false, so it copies of the neither indices or the not the data. So nothing is copied if you keep it to deep equal to false over here. The next important question over here is characterize the data frames in pandas. So data frame is a panda specific data structure that functions with a 2D display with rows and columns. And a data frame is a typical way of storing data that has two separate indices, namely a row index and a column index. So if you talk about the characteristics of data frames, so columns such as int, like integer and boolean, are heterogeneous. So it is commonly thought of a term reference for a series structure that includes both rows and columns. So if there are columns, it is denoted as columns, and if there are lines, it is denoted as index. And what is the syntax for creating a data frame in pandas? So first you have to import pandas as pd, then inside a variable you have to define pd.dataframe. So basically you're creating a data frame using pd.dataframe method. The next question is explain how to create a series from dictionary in Python. So series is a one-dimensional designated array that can hold any form of data such as Python objects, strings, integers, floating point numbers, and so on. So it is important to understand, unlike Python lists, a series always contains the same type of data. So if you want to know how to make a panda series using the dictionary, so for that you have to use the series method without the index parameter. The next question is explain about operations on series in pandas. So the pandas series is a one-dimensional classified array that may hold any type of data such as Python objects, strings, integers, floating point numbers, and so on. So the access identifiers are referred to as an index. The pandas series is merely a column in an Excel spreadsheet. So pandas series is built in the real world by loading the datasets from the existing storage, which can be either a SQL database, a CSV file, or an Excel file. So pandas series can be made from lists, dictionaries, and other such things. So series can be developed in a number of ways. And just to give you an example, we have written a few lines of code over here, such as import pandas as pd, then we import numpy as np, and then we create a very simple array over here, and the name of the array is data. In this we add np.array, and these are the elements of the array. So in single quotes we have specified capital MINDMAJIX. So basically these are the elements of our array, and here we are creating a series in this variable sir using pd.series, and inside this we have specifying this array called data. Okay, and what we are doing over here, we are just printing this ser. So what will be the output of this? So it will simply print MindMajix in capital letters. So this is just an example. So this is just an example about operations on the series in pandas. The next question is explain different ways of creating data frames in pandas. So there are a number of ways, as you can see on the screen, of creating data frames in pandas. So the first way is by making use of lists. Okay, so if you have hands-on experience in Python, so this is how you create a list. So for example, over here we have written d equal to, and in square brackets we have provided the elements of the list. Okay, so over here we have a alphabet and a number, then you have an alphabet and a number. So similarly, 3 elements are present in this list. So this is how you create a data frame as well in pandas. The next way is creating the pandas data frame. So as we have already seen, this particular line df equal to pd.dataframe, and here in this data frame you specified d and the columns, which is strings and integer. And what we are doing over here, we are simply printing the data frame. Okay, so this is another way of creating data frame. And then we can create a data frame by using arrays. For this, what you can do is you can import pandas as pd, then you can define d in curly braces, which is nothing but a key value pair over here. As you can see, this is the key and this is the value. Okay, name XYZ, ABC, DEFC, ASW, any random names. And then you have the marks. Okay, so for marks, we have 85, 80, 75, 70. And in this data frame, what we are doing, pd.dataframe, here we specify the D and the index is first, second, third, fourth. So once we print this, what will be the output? We will be getting the name column and the marks column. And then the index is first, second, third, fourth. Okay. So this is how you create a data frame in Pandas. The next question is, explain how to create empty data frames in Pandas. So to make a Pandas data frame that is full empty, you can use code such as import pandas as pd, then myemptydf and pd.dataframe. And in df, what you can do is pd.dataframe, and then you can specify the columns such as A, B, and C. So basically what we are doing is we are creating a data frame with 3 empty columns over here. So those empty columns are A, B, and C. The next question is, how will you add a column to the existing data frame in Pandas? So guys, as you can see over here, we have written a few lines of code just to explain this thing, how to add a column over here. So what we are doing is import pandas as pd, and employee is a data frame, and inside this what we have is employee name. Okay, and similar to employee name, like key value pair. So for name you have Ravi, Roshan, we know, then Selu. Then you have the employee ID, any random numbers, and then you have the employee qualifications. Okay, so this is the employee that we have created, like a list of employees. Then what you do is you use the line df equal to pd.dataframe, and inside this you specify this employee. Okay, and for employee address, what we have done is you have added another, you can say, the column in this employee. So emp address, and you have specified 4 addresses over here for the 4 employees. And what you are doing is you are adding another column in this data frame. So df address equal to employee address. Okay, so this addresses will be stored in address. And in the next line, what you're doing is you're simply printing the data frame. So guys, using this code, I want you guys just to pause this video and guess the output. And we will just discuss the output in the next slide. So the output, as you can see over here, is employee name, employee ID, employee qualification, and employee address. Okay, so initially we had only these 3 columns in our data frame, and then the employee address is the separate column that we added in the next step. Okay, so this is how you add a column in the existing data frame in Pandas. The next question is how to retrieve a single column from a Pandas data frame. Just we have taken the previous example. As you can see over here, import pandas as pd, then we have the employees like employee name and employee ID, and we are creating a data frame of employee over here. And once you print this data frame, now this df will print the entire data frame like the employee name and the employee ID. But if you want a single column, as the question says, so for that what you can do is print df and the column name in square brackets and single quotes. Okay, so this is one way of retrieving or printing a single column. And then there's another way, print df dot the column name. So over here we have specified employee ID. Okay, so this is how you retrieve a single column from a pandas data frame. The next question is explain about categorical data in pandas. So categorical is a data type in pandas that corresponds to a categorical variable and statistics. So categorical variable has a limited and is usually fixed. So a set of possible values which are nothing but categories. So for example, you can have gender, social class, blood type, nationality, observation time, or rating using categorical data. So these are some of the examples that you can mention or you can use for the categorical data. So all the categorical data values are either categories or NP or undefined. So apart from mentioning the definition of categorical data, like you can also mention few of the scenarios where you can use or if you have actually used, like if you have hands-on experience while dealing with categorical data, so that also you can mention in the actual interview when you are asked this question. The next important question over here is explain about multi-indexing in pandas. So multiple indexing is classified as fundamental indexing because it simplifies information, inspection and control, especially when dealing with higher dimensional data. So it allows us to store and handle data in lower dimensional data structures like series and data frames with an unlimited number of measurements. So the next question is explain about Pandas Index. So indexing in Pandas is the process of extracting specific rows and columns of a data from a data frame. So indexing could be simply selecting all of the rows and some of the columns, or part of the rows and all of the columns along with some of the each row and column. So indexing is often referred to as subset selection. Okay, so if you talk about indexing in pandas, so there are a few methods over here, such as if you specify square brackets, simply square brackets. So this method is known as the indexing operator. Then you have the dot loc and the square brackets. So this method is used for labels. Then you have the DataFrame.ilog and the square brackets. So this method is utilized for integer or position based data. And then you have the DataFrame.ix and square brackets. So this function is utilized for both integers as well as labels. So all of these methods are referred to collectively as indexers. The next question is explain about reindexing in pandas. So the data frame is reindexed to adhere to a new index with a configurable filling logic. So it inserts not available in the areas where the elements are missing from the previous index. So unless the new index is constructed as equivalent to the present one, in which case the copy value becomes the false. So it is used to modify the index of the data frames, rows and columns. The next question is, can you explain multi-indexing columns in pandas? So because it involves data manipulation and analysis, multiple indexing is characterized as vital indexing. So this is certainly relevant when operating with hyperdimensional data. It allows us to store and modify data in lower dimensional data structures like data frame and series with an indefinite number of dimensions. So if you talk about multiple index columns, so two columns will be used as index columns in this particular case. So the drop option is used to remove a column, whereas the append attribute is used to append given columns to an index column that already exists. So guys, in this particular question, if you have, like, as I told you, these questions are meant for the experienced candidates. So in your experience of, let's say, 2 to 3 years, if you have gained, or there might be a case where you have actually handled hyperdimensional data where you use multi-indexing. So that example also you can mention in the actual interview. The next question is, what is meant by the index in pandas? So Python is an excellent language for analyzing data, particularly with its vast ecological community of data-driven Python packages. So Pandas is another of those packages, and it makes data import and analysis very much easier. So Pandas set index is a function for modifying the index of a data frame from a data frame, series, or a list. So the index column can also be set while creating the data frame. However, because a data frame might be made up of 2 or more data frames, the index can be altered later using this particular method. And now if you talk about the syntax of set index, so what you can do is dataframe.setIndex, and here you have specified keys, drop, which can be true or false, append, which can be true or false, in place, true or false, verify integrity, true or false. So these are the 4 parameters that you can pass with set index. So if you talk about keys over here, so keys is nothing but the name of the column or a list of column names. If this particular parameter drop is true, so that removes the index column. And now, if the append is set to true, so what that means is the column is appended to the existing index column. If this in place is true, so this changes, I repeat. So this means that the changes are made in the data frame. And verify integrity if set to true will check whether the new index column is having duplicate values or not. The next question is explain how to reset the index in pandas. So guys, this particular question and the few previous of the questions are, basically scenario kind of questions. First, you have to explain what is exactly the procedure to reset the index in Python, or what is the significance of resetting the index in Python? Like in what scenarios you need to reset the index in pandas. Okay, so that particular thing you can explain. And then you can mention a few lines of code wherein you have actually done this particular thing. So here, the pandas is one-dimensional ND array with identifiers on the axis. So the identifiers do not have to be distinct, but they must be of the hashable type. The entity allows both label-based and integer indexing, as well as a set of techniques for handling the index. So the pandas function series.resetIndex creates reinvigorated series or data frame with the index reset. So this is useful when an index must be utilized as a column. And now, if you talk about the syntax of this, so here in reset index, you have level, which is none by default, then drop true or false, in place true or false, column level 0, and column fill empty. So if you talk about level, so here you can have integer, string, tuple, or list, which is by default, and only the specified levels should be removed from the index. By default, all levels are removed. So for drop, the default value is false. So inserting index into data frame columns is not recommended. So this returns the index to its original integer value. Now you have the in place false, which is by default a Boolean value, and this is used for modifying the existing data frame. Then you have the column level. So by default, it is 0 for integer and string. So this determines the level the labels are inserted into if the columns have several levels. So it is inserted into the first level by default. And the last parameter over here is column fill. So this is the default object, and this evaluates how the other levels are named if the columns have different labels. So if there is no value, the index name is replicated. Again, as I've told you, to explain this concept, you can write a few lines of code. The next question over here is explain about data operation in pandas. So there are several useful data operations for data frames in pandas, such as you can see over here, we have mentioned few of them: row and column selection. So we can retrieve any row and column of the data frame. So we can retrieve any row and column of the data frame by specifying the names of the rows and the columns. So it is one-dimensional and it is regarded as a series when you select it from the data frame. The next operation that you can do with the data is filter data. So by using some of the Boolean logic in data frame, you may filter data as per your requirements. The next operation is dealing with the null values. So when no data is being sent to the items, a null value can appear. So there may be no values in the respective columns, which are commonly represented as not available. So Pandas provides several useful functions for identifying, deleting, and changing null values in data frames. So if you talk about the functions for dealing with null values, here you can have is null, not null, drop any, fill any, replace, and interpolate. Then you have the string operations as well for dealing with data. So Pandas provides a set of string functions for working with string data while ignoring the missing or the not available values. So the .str option or the method can be used to conduct various string operations such as lower to convert any string to lowercase, upper for converting any string to uppercase. Then you also have strip. So this method eliminates spacing from every string in the series or index along with a new line. Then you have split. So this particular method separates a string according to the pattern. Then you have the replace, and then in replace you have to specify the original and the substitute value. So it substitutes the value of the original from the substitute value. Then you have repeat, you have count. Okay, so these are some of the operations for string. Then you also have the count values. So using the value counts option or the method, you can count the overall possible combinations of data. So these are some of the operations that you can perform on the dataset in Pandas. The next question is, how can a data frame be converted to an Excel file? So using the Excel function, we can export the data frame into an Excel file. So we must mention the target file name to write a single object to an Excel file. If we wish to write to many sheets, we must build an Excel writer object with the target file name and the sheet in that file that we want to write to. The next question is how to format the data in your Pandas data frame. So almost all of the time, you'll want to be ready to execute operations on the absolute measurements in your data frames. And there are a few techniques that you can follow to format the data in your data frame, such as replacing all the string occurrences in a data frame. So for this particular thing, you can use the replace method. Then you can remove parts from strings in the cells of your data frame. So removing unnecessary strings is a time-consuming task. So fortunately, you have a solution for that in Pandas. So you apply the lambda function to each element or the element by element of the column using map function on the column result. So the function takes the string value and removes everything on the left as well as any of the 6 strings on the right. So you can remove the left and the right portions from your data using the strings method. The next way is splitting text into a column into multiple rows in a data frame. So it is quite difficult to divide your text into many rows. And the next method is applying a function to your Pandas data frames column or rows. So you might want to use a function to alter the information in the data frame. So if you guys have actually dealt with such kind of operations on your data, or you have gained hands-on experience, so there you can give an example of applying a function to your Pandas data frames column or row. The next question is explain about data aggregation in Pandas. So to implement any aggregation method across one or more columns, so use the dataframe.aggregate method. So you can use strings, callables, dictionaries, or a collection of strings to aggregate. So the most commonly used aggregations are sum. So this method returns the sum of the values for the requested column. Then you have min, which returns the minimum value for the requested column. Then you also have max. So this method returns the maximum value for the requested columns. So guys, just to give you an example, what you can do over here is you can create a data frame, like you can create an array with some values, with some numerical values, and with those numerical values, you can calculate using mean the minimum value, using max you can calculate the maximum value out of those particular values, and using sum you can calculate the sum of those values inside the array or the data frame. The next question is, what is the use of GroupBy in Pandas? So the data is divided into groups using the GroupBy function or the method. So it organizes the data according to certain parameters. So labels are mapped to group names when using grouping. So it has a lot of different versions that can be made using the parameters, and it makes separating data a very easier task. The next question is, what is Pandas NumPy? So Pandas NumPy is an open source Python package or a library that would be used to work with huge number of data sets. So it includes a robust n-dimensional array object as well as complicated mathematical algorithms for data processing with Python. So with Pandas NumPy, you can do Fourier transformation, linear programming, and pseudo-random capabilities. It also includes integrated tools for C or C++ and Fortran programming language. The next question is, what is vectorization in Python Pandas? So the procedure of executing operations on the full array is known as vectorization. So this is intended to limit the number of iterations that the methods do. So pandas have a series of vectorized methods such as string functions and aggregations that are optimized for the use with series and data frames. As a result, it is preferable to use vectorized pandas methods to perform the tasks quickly. The next question is, how will you combine different data frames in pandas? So there are a few ways to combine different data frames in pandas. So the first way over here is append method, and the syntax, as you can see over here, is df like dataframe.append and the data frame. Okay, so here you are combining df1 and df2. So basically the append method is used to horizontally stack the data frames. Then you have the concat method. So using this method, you can sequentially stack the data frame. So this works the best because the data frames have the same fields and columns. And the syntax for concat is pd.concat, and here you specify the data frame 1 and data frame 2. Then you also have the join method. So this is used to extract the data from different data frames that have one or more columns. And what is the syntax for this? So the syntax for join is df1.join, and then you specify the df2, which is the data frame 2. The next question is, how can you iterate over the data frame in pandas? So iterating over a data frame in pandas, so what you can do is you can use for loop, and that is to be merged with the iterRows function call. So this is quite similar to iterating an array. The next question is, what method will you use to rename the index or the columns of the pandas data frame? So the dot rename method is used to rename the data frame index values or columns. So guys, with this we have covered the advanced level of questions related to pandas, and now question number 31 onwards, we will be covering the most frequently asked short and simple questions of pandas. So the question says, what is the basic use of pandas? So pandas is a popular open source Python library used for analyzing the data, machine learning algorithms, and data science applications. The next question is pandas a module or a library? So pandas is a programming interface for Python. So it offers ready to use high performance data analysis tools and data structures. So pandas is a Python package for analyzing the data and the data science that runs on the top of Numpy. So what is the full form of pandas? So the acronym for pandas is Python Data Analysis Library. So the phrase comes from the multiple linear regression term panel data, which applies to dimensional discrete classes pandas according to Wikipedia. The next question is, what type of inputs are accepted by pandas? So guys, as you can see over here, these are the types of inputs that are accepted by pandas, such as 1D, ND arrays, lists, dictionaries or series. Then for two-dimensional, you have NumPy. Then you have a structured or recorded ND array, a series, and another data frame. The next question is, what are the data structures that are available with pandas? So series and data frames are the two basic types of data structures supported by pandas. So as we have already discussed, series is one-dimensional, whereas data frame is two-dimensional data structure. So guys, with this, we have come to the end of this session on pandas interview questions. So in this session, we have tried to cover maximum questions. And if at all you have doubts in the questions that we have just discussed, so you can write your doubts and queries in the comment section. And my team is here to help you resolve all your doubts and queries. So guys, I wish you all the very best for your upcoming interview. And thank you so much for being with us.